Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the fifth round of the Summer Championship. It is the fifth and penultimate round of the championship that takes place every second Tuesday. As usual, we will have two series presented this evening. One of the series is Mazda MX-5 Championship and the other one will be the Porsche Cup Championship. We head over to Italy, the Mugello circuit, which is a racetrack located in Florence, Tuscany, Italy. It is a 5.2 kilometers long track with 15 corners in total. One interesting feature of this circuit is a 1.1 long kilometer straight. That hopefully will create some nice slipstream racing, well, at least for the Porsche Cup cars. As usual, the MX-5s are always welcome for everyone to join, and we have quite an interesting field that differs in pace. Our current championship leader, and I think it's already safe to say the champion, Nimz, is out in the front, though Tarczali, who is currently second in the championship standings, is only 6 tenths behind Nimz in this qualifying session. Wss is currently third, and right on his tail is Lapo, who just made a mistake, and at the very end of the qualifying session looks like Lapo will not have the chance to go any quicker at this circuit, so he will start, well, fourth at the best. McFly is also on the racetrack. Wss is trying to go faster. Tarczali has ended his racing in this session already, standing back in the pits waiting for the first sprint race. Two sprint races in both of the series, 15 minutes long for each session, and 5 top finishers from the first race will start in a reversed order for the second race. Nimz also doesn't feel quite comfortable with his previous fastest lap time, so he just teleports back to the pit lane. Wss is also going slow, so McFly, he's currently still on the fast lap. He needs 3 tenths to start from the second row of the grid for today's race, and we don't have the data of how the drivers are doing currently, and it looks like Fernandez has just made a fast enough lap to start from third. So all in the hands of McFly to start a little bit higher on the grid. I see Tarczali having some sort of issues. He's currently disconnected from the server. Hopefully he will be back for the race because, well, he currently has the highest position on the grid, right behind Nimz. Habiciak is currently 8th, Martin 9th, and Saldukas without any qualifying lap time. He's currently 10th, but actually all of those guys are at least one position lower. If Tarczali reconnects, do we have a problem? Did McFly... Oh, strange cameras. Someone is off the racetrack, so we have to figure out who it was. McFly went slightly faster and he's up to third. If Tarczali will not rejoin the session, we can try and take a quick look at the qualifying session results. Tarczali is presented in this table, though he's currently disconnected and he has roughly 1 minute time to rejoin this session. So we had Nimz taking the pole position. Tarczali qualified second, Fernandez third, McFly fourth, Wss fifth, Lapo sixth, Martin seventh, Karnatka eighth, Habiciak ninth, Fong 10th, and Saldukas without any qualifying lap time. He is currently 11th and the last on the grid. While we wait for this race to start, we will deeply hope that Tarczali will get the chance to reconnect, because his qualifying session was pretty decent. He's the second driver in the overall standings of this championship, so I'm pretty sure he'll be interested in collecting as many points as possible. Nimz is currently in the lead, 107 points. Tarczali is currently second with 87 points, and Lapo is third with 78. So Tarczali and Lapo, they have a quite close fight. McFly is currently fourth, 71 points, and Karnatka fifth, 62 points. The heaviest car on the grid belongs to Jan Nimz, 35 kilograms of added additional weight. This is the maximum that the Mazdas can receive. Tarczali 5 kilograms, Lapo 20 kilograms, and McFly 5, Karnatka 5 kilograms of added weight. And it looks like Tarczali didn't have the chance to reconnect, so maybe some issues for the driver with his hardware. That means that we will have a 10 cars grid for the first race. Lights out, away we go. Jan Nimz should see no problems at the front of the pack. We don't have Jan Nimz, do we? No, he's in the first place. I thought we lost Jan Nimz for one short moment. As usual, in the first race, Jan Nimz, he just starts and flies away, but there's always interesting battles behind. That's McFly, Vu, and I believe that's Martin from behind in this white, yellow, blue car. Through second and into the third corner of Mugello circuit. Looks like the coal tires are doing not such big favors for the drivers. You can see that Martin was deeply understeering into the second corner. I think he had a small contact with Justinas Saldukas, who didn't qualify in this session. He's already up to 7, so plus 3 positions gained for Justinas Saldukas, who will be trying to do his best from the back of the pack, and that was a big contact between Martin and Vu. Vu is off the track. We have live referee watching this race, and I think there will be no big thoughts about what penalty should be handed over to the driver who has just made a mistake and made the live war really pretty bad for the driver of Vu. So Martin down into P7 and still losing places rather than gaining those. Justinas Saldukas up to 5th. McFly is holding on to 4th place. Yuri Lapo, he doesn't have his main rival present in this current race. Not sure if we'll have Tarczali back for the second. But I'm pretty sure Yuri Lapo will try to gain on Fernandez, who, to my memory, is doing his first race in this championship. Don't see his name in the overall standings, so nice to see new names in the penultimate round. And as I have mentioned at the very beginning of this broadcast, everyone is free to join. No big requirements for the license. It's enough for the driver to have the rookie license on the World Sim Series platform, and it is not that hard to maintain. You have to answer some questions and do some test laps without crashing out, and you receive the rookie license. To read about more the licensing system on the World Sim Series platform, which is a new feature starting from this year, you can go to the platform worldsimseries.com and you will find the needed information. Nimz 0.9 of a second gap against Fernandez, and he just gained another half of a second in the course of one corner because Fernandez just made a mistake. This is a nice chance for Yuri Lapo to try and go at least one place higher to collect as many points as possible in the battle for the second position in the championship. I'm pretty sure it's safe to say that. We have finished 4 rounds already. 3 of those were won by Jan Nimz, and I think Jan Nimz just had a problem in the first race and he couldn't finish the very first race, not the whole round. He started in the second race and I think he snatched the win, so plenty of points for Jan Nimz, and 4 rounds out of 6 go into the overall standings of the drivers. So with 3 out of 4 wins, Jan Nimz is, I'm pretty sure he's pretty safe to become the champion of this series. Lapo has one win, so if my memory is correct, that happened in the first round of the series. Now he wants another podium finish and maybe try to overtake Tarczali in the overall standings. He's -9 points in the standings, and without Tarczali in the first race, I think he'll have the best chances to gain that spot for him. But he needs to finish this race first, and it's a close battle into the first corner between Fernandez and Lapo. Lapo managed to complete that overtake. I was forced to go around the outside, but it was more than enough for Lapo. He had a nice speed advantage coming out of the final corner. The track has 15 corners in total, and it should be really interesting to race these MX-5s on this long and pretty fast circuit. It has a nice flow, and I think it should suit these Mazdas quite nicely. You usually see such Mazdas racing on smaller circuits with slower corners and not that long straights, but we have a nice section of fast sweeping corners and actually elevation changes on this circuit. So hopefully we will have a close racing action in this race. Fernandez, well, he qualified second and he was 3/10 faster than Lapo was in the session, so I think Fernandez is just trying to adapt to the circuit. Maybe he didn't have a lot of practice left before entering this session, but his pace looks pretty strong if he would have the chance to avoid mistakes, which he didn't do one lap ago. He made a mistake which allowed Lapo to overtake him. Both of the drivers already 3 seconds behind the leader of this race, and they have a battle of their own. But if they stuck for it for too long, McFly is right on the tail trying to catch those guys. And as soon as you get involved in some sort of racing action in these Mazdas, you lose quite a lot of time going around those corners in defensive lines, and that usually allows the drivers behind to gain on their rivals. Looking at the slipstream, 1.1 kilometer long straight with a pretty fast exit out of the final corner. That really definitely creates a nice slipstream for these Mazdas. It's a shame we don't have more Mazdas competing for higher places in this championship. Would create a really nice view for the drivers. This is a battle for P8. Only 10 cars present, so everyone who will finish this race will finish in the top 10 places. Saldukas currently 5th, so he's on the provisional pole position, but I'm pretty sure he will be trying to gain on his rivals, and this is like a small practice session for Justinas Saldukas before he will head out over, hopefully, to the Porsche Cup Championship, as we usually see Justinas Saldukas participate in both of the series of this championship. And this is the move from Fernandez. Nice defensive lines from Lapo, but as mentioned before, both of the drivers are taking incorrect driving lines, and while you drive these low-powered vehicles, those incorrect racing lines, they give you a big disadvantage that would allow McFly to gain on the rivals in front, and that's what he's trying to do at this moment, but he's also not avoiding mistakes, so a little bit impatient from the driver of McFly, and weaving down the back straight is Fernandez. He tried to provoke a mistake from for Lapo, but looks like he made the mistake on his own, and now he's 5 seconds 5/10 behind Lapo, and has the company of McFly joined on his tail, running down the main straight. 3/10 separating the drivers. Slipstream does miracles when the cars get a little bit closer. You can see the slipstream doing its job. The gap went down to 1/10 of a second, but it's still a little bit too big of a gap for the drivers to swap places. McFly tries to create himself an opportunity to overtake the driver ahead, but I'm not sure if McFly should try and do that straight away, because Fernandez has pace when he doesn't do mistakes, and if these two drivers will start battling each other, they will definitely lose the company of Yuri Lapo, and they will only see him drive away from these two. So I think what McFly will try to do at this stage is just stay as close as possible to the back end of Fernandez's car, wait till they reach the main straight, and then they will try to battle it out. Still plenty of time. 2/3 of the race are completed, and there was a small mistake from Lapo, and that was more than enough for Fernandez to gain that position. McFly goes sideways, touches the grass, still has a good exit, and it looks like Lapo made a slightly bigger mistake than what we have seen made by McFly, which allowed McFly almost to overtake Lapo on the same lap. So that would have been two positions lost for Lapo in the course of one lap. He needs to gather himself, and it looks like it's not the easiest task to do. Maybe he overheated his tires. I'm not sure why he slowed down so dramatically. Side by side around the final corner. The outside line goes to McFly. It's a little bit dirty on the outside, but McFly managed to get back on the power earlier than his main rival. And interestingly, Yuri Lapo slowed down even more. He's now 1.5 seconds behind Fernandez and has the company of Soldukas on his tail. So at one point of this race it looked like Lapo has the best chances to take over the second position in this championship from his rival Tarczali, who didn't start this race for whatever reasons. He qualified second and is not presented on the grid. And Yuri Lapo, well, he needs to battle Soldukas now, and 2/10 separates these two drivers, and McFly is really on a nice rhythm. He was, though, 7/10 slower than Fernandez on the previous lap, but well, he had to battle Lapo on some tricky racing lines. Fernandez trying to lose that slipstream from McFly. It looks like it's working for Fernandez, and there's the move by Justyna Soldukas down the hill. It was corner 7, Savelli. I was just trying to find the name of that corner and didn't want to make a mistake, but well, it's really only on some rare occasions where you can see those moves being made in corner 7 without any contacts. And there's the battle for P2. So Yuri Lapo taking the provisional pole position for the second race, and McFly is on fire and trying to catch up with Fernandez, who is quick but looks like is not avoiding mistakes running around the circuit. Soldukas is also in the mix, only 1.5 seconds behind McFly. These two drivers are battling each other. That's gonna definitely give a chance for Justyna Soldukas to gain on these two, and Yuri Lapo, well, he needs to focus himself, and he might still have a chance to finish off this first race of the 5th round in the MX5 Championship a little bit higher than he currently is. Nimz, no problems out in front, and I don't expect any mistakes from the current championship leader and a multi-time winner on the World Sim Series platform, especially on the original Assetto Corsa title. Plenty of trophies in the baggage of Jan Nimz. I think he's one of the drivers who holds the most trophies ever received on the World Sim Series platform. And just looking at the stats, and I can tell you one thing, it's really amazing. If you want to take a look at what Jan Nimz has achieved throughout his career on the World Sim Series platform, just visit the website, find this series, find the name of Jan Nimz, and You will see the collection of trophies, virtual trophies collected by Jan Nimz, and it's, well, really unbelievable how fast this German driver is. Race is still not over, and we will start the final lap as soon as Jan Nimz will cross the line, and it's gonna be tight. There's still a chunk of track remain for the current race leader, but I think we're safe to say that there's still gonna be one lap to go as soon as Jan Nimz will cross the line, but that's gonna be tight. So I think McFly wishes for one more lap because it's right on the tail of Fernandez, and one more lap time would give him more chances, but, well, actually I was mistaken. 2, 1 and 0 to go in this session, meaning that Jan Nimz is on the final lap of the first race, and he should cross the line and be declared the winner of the first race. McFly will not find the needed gap, and he's a little bit too far behind of Fernandez to gain that position, but that's gonna be close and tight. Drag race to the finish line. Fernandez finishes second, and McFly third. Justinas Saldukas finishes fourth, and Yuri Lapo takes the fifth position. Karnatka should take home the sixth place with Fong seventh. Martin is currently eighth, Habiciak ninth, and Wu, who was running a little bit higher at the beginning of this one, he had a contact with McFly, it was, or it was Martin. He had a contact with Martin, who finished 8th, and Wu finishes 10th. So let's take a quick break after this session, and we will get back with some more racing action from the MX-5 series. So these are the results of the first race. Jan Nimz took the win, Fernandez finished second, McFly third, Saldukas fourth, Yuri Lapo fifth. So Yuri Lapo will be starting from the first place, and Jan Nimz fifth for in the second race of this race, or of this event, I should say. Karnatka sixth, Fong seventh, Martin eighth, Habiciak ninth, and Wu finished 10th. We have a couple of moments till we see the second race starting, and, well, as usual, this is the livery of our current championship leader, and if he'll win the next race, that's gonna be the end, and Jan Nimz should easily become the champion of this whole championship summer, taking place in summer. Yuri Lapo second with a usual World Sim Series livery. And think the time of the first race has ended, and hopefully we will not have a very long wait till we see the next race. So far I can see Tarczali is not back for the second run, so maybe the problems that he endured after the qualifying session are slightly bigger than everyone expected, and he's not back, and that's maybe good news for Yuri Lapo, though he didn't have the chance to finish the first race off with a nice result. He finished 5th. That's not the highest amount of points given for the driver, but he has a nice opportunity in the second race to finish maybe first if Nimz will have some problems overtaking the slower drivers. This is the car of Justinas Saldukas in a very special livery World Sim Series. So the developers are also having some nice racing action at their free time during the evening hours. And our cars are already lined out on the grid for the second race, which will take place in roughly 25 seconds. Yuri Lapo will lead the pack, but Nimz will start from the 5th place and will be the hungriest driver of them all, trying to use his speed against his main rivals to try and finish as high as he can. So let's start this race on the leads of Nimz as he prepares himself for a standing start procedure as usual in the MX-5 and all the championships in the original Assetto Corsa title. Nice start, and he's already off the line side by side with McFly. McFly gave him plenty of room on the inside and outbrakes himself right away, almost going off the racetrack. And Nimz up to 4th, Justinas Saldukas up to 1st place, so Yuri Lapo lost 1 place and he's already in the battle with Fernandez and has to give up. So -2 positions, and it looks like it will not take too long for Yuri Lapo to lose another one. Nice driving by Yuri Lapo, managed to defend at least the 3rd position for this moment being. Nimz has a much better exit, but he has a car in front. That's not going to be an easy overtake on board with Nimz. Beautiful driving by all of the drivers, respect given to each other. And Lapo dropping to 4th, while Nimz is up to 5th. McFly and Yuri Lapo will battle it out on the upcoming corners. So I think I expected a little bit more from Yuri Lapo in this race, especially as he was left alone in the battle for P2. But Yuri Lapo on cold tires is missing all his brake marks and braking points, so outbrakes himself slightly, and now he's at the risk to lose the 4th place to McFly. Nice little battle while we wait for Nimz to gain on Fernandez, and I think Fernandez and Nimz haven't met in this championship before, so that's gonna be an interesting battle also to watch and to witness. But we are approaching the longest straight of this racetrack, and we'll see a couple of slipstreams approaching the 1st corner. McFly tries to create himself a better exit. He missed the apex, but he should still be able to get back on the power a little bit earlier than Yuri Lapo will do, and you can see straight away the speed advantage that McFly created himself by making that wider entry into the 15th corner, using the slipstream, but doing that really patiently. And Nimz, well, he was forced to choose the outside line, so is McFly, and both of the drivers remain behind their rivals, so no move for Nimz, no move for McFly. Everything stays in position as it was after a couple of corners. Justen Saldukas 0.6 of a gap against Fernandez, but his main rival Nimz is currently third, so Justen Saldukas has the chance to create a bigger gap for himself in this race to try and fend off the fastest driver on the grid currently in the MX5 Championship, Nimz. Well, it looks like patience is his friend in this current race, and so is for McFly. Not so easy to overtake around the racetrack while you don't have these big braking zones, except for the first corner. And 12th is also a corner that needs to be braking hard into. Justen Saldukas just made a mistake that creates a nice battle of three cars. This is the 12th corner I was speaking about. 13th and 14th is a flat-out chicane as we approach corner number 15, which allows the drivers to pick a couple of different racing lines. Wonder what Fernandez has in his mind. Justen Saldukas defending the inside, which is totally understandable. Makes a mistake, almost takes both of the drivers off the racetrack. That opens up the door for Nimz, and he's already up to the second position. Fernandez is still running side by side and almost touching fenders of these cars. I think Fernandez has a better run out of the final corner, though Nimz tried to use the slipstream created by Justen Saldukas, and Justen Saldukas is currently the slowest driver on the racetrack. 3 wide into turn 1, and there's a contact between Fernandez and Justen Saldukas. Hopefully Fernandez will manage to control the sliding car and not hit anyone else, and that's what he managed to achieve. So it looks like the driver who just joined the championship is gonna be a really decent driver in the future if he'll continue to race in the championship, though it was a contact, but a nice save, and no more damage to any other driver opened the doors for Nimz to take that lead. So half of a second gap against his nearest rival, the fastest lap time also in the pocket of Nimz currently in the second race. And we are left out with McFly and Yuri Lapo battling currently for P3. So McFly managed to overtake Lapo. Doesn't mean that he'll have the ability to stay in front for the remaining race. Fernandez dropped down to P6, but well, having witnessed his pace, I'm pretty sure he will be eager to try and gain on at least one driver in the field. With 9 minutes on the clock, he has plenty of time to do so. Yuri Lapo and McFly. Oh, and there's another contact. Both of the drivers brake really late into the 12th corner, both almost going off the racetrack and taking a really wide line. This is good news for Fernandez because all 4 cars have been just bunched up together. Martin in front of Fernandez, driver who didn't avoid contact in the first race with Wu. He's much more careful now into turn 15, almost leaving the door wide open for Fernandez, just letting the faster car through, at least it seems so, and I think Martin will try to hold on to Fernandez for as long as possible while we witness McFly and Lapo battle it out for P3. Martin, well, he took a wider entry into the final corner, which gave him better acceleration out of the final turn. He has the advantage approaching turn 1, but he's on the outside line. Fernandez braking so much later still, leaving enough of room for the driver on the outside. And I really enjoy the driving that Fernandez is currently presenting. It's a shame we didn't have the driver aboard from the beginning of this series, but it looks like he would have created nice drama and action. in all of the races. And what was happening in front? It looks like Nimz just drove the fastest lap time of this race, but he's currently only 2/10 ahead of Justinas Saldukas, so he definitely made a mistake. That's McFly making a mistake and letting Martin through. And Fernandez is back into P3, 4.4 seconds behind Saldukas. That's a really big gap to try and eliminate in the remaining minutes of this session. But what about Lapo and Saldukas? Nimz and Saldukas. I'm trying to figure out why suddenly the gap disappeared between the first and the second place. I'm pretty sure it has something to do with the pace of Nimz. Is it intentional? Was it a big mistake, or maybe, well, some hardware issues? But the pace dropped dramatically. He just dropped the fastest lap time of this race so far. It was 2 minutes 8.8. The fastest lap time of the first race driven by Nimz was 2 minutes 8.3. Let's wait until the drivers cross the line this time, and we will see the results of, well, at least the results of the speeds that the drivers managed to create around the racetrack on this current lap time. That's it was the fourth lap as they crossed the line. 2 minutes 9.0 and 2 minutes 8.7 the lap time by Justinas Saldukas. So it's not the dramatic drop of pace by Nimz. It's actually some nice pace found on the racetrack by Justinas Saldukas. Nimz should be, well, can be a little bit more relaxed. Justinas Saldukas was involved in an accident a couple of laps ago with Fernandez, and I'm pretty sure the referees will take a good look at what happened there. So there is a slight possibility that Justinas Saldukas will receive at least some sort of a penalty if he will be found at fault at all. But that creates some nice racing action, and I don't remember we've seen such a big competition given for our current championship leader. And, well, if he'll finish second, Nimz will still become the champion of this series. And driving with one hand is Nimz. That's how professional the driver is. Doesn't need to have both hands on his steering wheel to battle it out with another driver. He still hits his brake marks and apexes perfectly. But Justinas Saldukas, well, where did that pace come from suddenly in the penultimate round of the championship? So back in front, Nimz, the gap is only 2/10 of a second. And that's not going to be the fastest lap time by both of the drivers. Fernandez understands that. His previous lap time was 2 minutes 8 seconds and 9/10. Now Nimz takes a really, really wide line. It just seemed that he opened the door for Justinas Saldukas. So he has his gears. We can see that he's switching those. So that's definitely not a gearbox problem. But is it a problem at all? 2 minutes 10.6, 2 minutes 10.7. Justinas Saldukas back in the battle again, but Nimz is back in the lead because into the final corner Justinas managed to take that overtake, but it was clever driving by Nimz by taking that wider line. Fernandez was 1 second faster than both of these cars in front, and no wonder why that happens, because almost in every corner these two drivers are like glued to each other and have to battle it on the circuit. I think the gap is still safe, pretty safe to say, and we are on the penultimate lap of this race, so less than 2 laps to go, and Fernandez has the company of Yuri Lapo right on his tail. He was 1.5 tenths faster on the previous lap than Yuri Lapo, but he was 1 second faster than Nimz and Justinas Saldukas. So if these two continue to battle it even harder and potentially run into at least one mistake, there's a nice chance waiting for Fernandez. So all that he needs to do is wait it out and make no mistakes. A nice attempt by Justinas Saldukas, but I'm pretty sure it's almost impossible to make that overtake possible into turn 10 and 11 as we approach turn 12. It's one of the tightest hairpins on the racetrack, well, similar to turn 1, but it's a slightly longer one with a nice exit to a flat-out chicane, turns 13 and 14 as we approach the final corner. And as in the previous race, so in this one, we will finish the race just right after the time will tick out on the clock. But finally Nimz finds some good rhythm, but it was still definitely nice to see the battle of these two drivers. It was a surprise for me actually, because I just really was so so comfortable with Nimz leading all the races in this championship. I didn't even have one thought that someone might try and overtake him during these races on pure pace. Martin and McFly into turn 1. Nice little battle. So McFly, he doesn't find the same rhythm as he had in the first race. He finished 3rd. He's currently 5th and has to go defensive from Martin, and both drivers have Wu on their tails. I think Lapo just made a bigger mistake. Was it Lapo or Fernandez? It was Fernandez who just made a mistake on the exit of turn 5. And that allowed Yuri Lapo through, so good news for Yuri Lapo, who is currently in the battle for P2 in the overall standings. Justinas Saldukas still on the same pace as Nimz, so Nimz has to take a good look at his rear view mirrors and look at the lap time of Fernandez. It's almost as fast as it was in the first race by Nimz, 2 minutes 8 seconds and 5 tenths. The fastest lap time so far in the race session is 2 minutes 8 seconds and 3 tenths. Actually, same pace in the qualifying session, and Fernandez is back at it. Yuri Lapo just made a tiniest bit of mistake, and Fernandez is back through again into P3. Nimz with a surprise follower, Justinas Saldukas, in the second race. Close racing action, nice stuff by the drivers, but it's definitely the win definitely will go to Nimz, while we have these two battling it out, and Yuri Lapo just managed to overtake Fernandez into the final corner. It's gonna be a drag race till the finish line. Nimz won the race, Saldukas finishes 2nd, but what about these two guys? Currently Lapo is in the lead, and I think that's gonna be enough. And almost no gap separating Lapo and Fernandez in the battle for P3. Martin finishes 3rd. Right on the tail is McFly and Wu. What do we have next? That's Krnatka, and looks like Habiciak has had some problems, did he? Krnatka finished 6th, Fong finished 7th, Martin finished 8th, Habiciak 9th, and Wu finished 10th. In the first race. Okay, I was looking at the wrong results. Anyways, this was the second race of the penultimate round in the MX5 Summer Championship, and we can take a look at the results. So Nimz taking the win in the second race. Saldukas finished 2nd, which was one of the bigger surprises of this evening. Lapo finished 3rd, right in front of Fernandez. The gap was 3,700 of a second. Martin managed to finish 5th with McFly on his tail. Wu 7th, Krnatka 8th, Habiciak 9th, and Fong rounding out the top 10 finishers. So stay tuned. This was the first series of this evening. We are taking a short break, and we will be back with more racing action from the Porsche Cup Championship. So welcome back to the Summer Championship. This is the Porsche Cup, the second series of the racing presented on the Tuesday evenings. This is the penultimate round of the championship. 4 out of 6 rounds, the results of 4 rounds count towards the overall results of the drivers in the championship standings. And we have a nice tight battle for first place. And as I've already mentioned at the beginning of the stream, MX5 is open for all the drivers, including the rookie license holders, while the Porsche Cup is open only for the Pro-Am license holders. Therefore, even though we have a slightly smaller grid this evening in the Porsche Racing Series, it's always some nice racing action to witness, no matter where we race. We find ourselves in Italy, the racetrack Mugello, 15 corners in total, and it holds a 1.1 kilometer long straight. Let's take a quick look at the championship standings as they are after 4 rounds. Mendelis currently in the lead with the heaviest car on the grid, 45 kilograms of added BOP to the multiple race winner, and he'll definitely have big struggles this afternoon fighting for holding on to the first place in the standings. Neirola is currently second with 123 points, but if you minus 2 worse rounds for both of the drivers are equal on standings, meaning that Neirola has still high chances to try and battle with Mendelis for the championship win. Simon Speth is currently second, 20 kilograms of BOP, 118 points. I think Speth is currently absent in this race. Mickiewicz is 4th in the standings, and Saldukas is currently 5th. Out of the top 5 drivers in the overall standings, we currently have Saldukas, Mendelis and Neirola in this race, well, at least in the qualifying session, which has still 3.5 minutes on the clock. Saldukas currently in front with a lap time of 1:50.8. Mendelis right on his tail. Taliano's 3rd. Neirola is currently 5th. So at this moment, the driver who struggles the most, at least by the looks of it, is Neirola. But well, the qualifying session is only one step in this whole weekend format. We will have 2 races in total after the qualifying session finishes. Similar rules as they are in the MX5 championship. The top 5 drivers of the first race will start the second in a reversed order. So Neirola will try to do his best to give a bigger headache for Mendelis, who went back to the pit lane a couple of moments ago. He's now on his next flying lap, 2 minutes and 30 seconds on the clock, so he's safe to start one and then another fast lap in this session, locking up the inside of the wheels. No ABS nor traction control on these cars. The tires should be hot and ready in the qualifying session for the first lap. Drivers have the chance to warm the tires and the brakes the way they need to do that during the qualifying session. On their outlap, it's a different story during the race, so it's usually a little bit tougher racing in the opening laps, and as we've already seen in the previous races, Mendelis is doing pretty nice on the opening laps. He's not doing pretty nice on his first try out of the 2 tries that he has left. If he has enough of fuel in the fuel tank, he will have to start another lap to do it better. And currently, while we were looking at Mendelis, Talianos took the provisional pole position. We'll look at the gaps separating the top 3 drivers. It is only 800 of a second. Leo Bryan 3/10 behind, Neirola 5/10 behind, McFly 8/10 behind, Yuri Lapo 9/10 behind. So we have Gonzalo and Martin on the grid, and I think there was one driver who just disconnected. It wasn't Leo Bryan. It looks like all the drivers are back on the grid. While I was trying to figure out who the driver was who disconnected from the server, apparently it is the driver who reconnected. So Martin is currently 9th with no valid lap time. Well, actually his valid lap time is only the outlap that he has managed to do. And well, if you complete your fast lap not within the boundaries of track limits, the lap time gets invalidated. So the drivers try to push as hard as they can, but that creates some mistakes. So Talianos managed to cross the line, 10 seconds on the clock. Solduka starting his next lap. What about Matas Mendelis? And I think that's it. The qualifying session is over for Matas Mendelis, so he was well within the time limits as he started his final try. But he made mistakes somewhere around the course, or actually he is on his flying lap. I thought he's in between the 13th and 14th corner, but he actually managed to start his final lap. Talianos is back in the pit lane, so he will not go faster, and Matas Mendelis is trying his all. Well, you can see how hard it is for the drivers to find the remaining hundredths of a second, and it's no luck for Matas Mendelis, so the best position that he will start this race at is P3 Neirola. He managed to go slightly faster, up to 4th out of 5th. Now he's down back in P5 again because Leo Bryan crossed the line and took the 4th place away, and we currently have 5 drivers within 0.3 of a second between each other. So the qualifying session is really important, but with such a long straight and clever driving by the drivers, I'm pretty sure Neirola can see himself winning in this race. And cross the line, and he's not going faster, so that means Wss Neirola will start the race from P5. Good news for Wss is he's not that far behind from 4 drivers ahead of him, and he'll have his chance in these coming races. And knowing that Matas Mendelis' car is the heaviest car on the grid, that's some good news for him, though his car has 25 kilograms of added BOP. That's not the easiest way to try and go into the front of the grid. So Justin Soldukas only 5 kilograms, while Leo Bryan 0 kilograms on his Porsche for this event. So Talianos taking the pole position in the qualifying session. Soldukas will start 2nd, Matas Mendelis 3rd, Leo Bryan 4th, Neirola 5th, McFly 6th, Yuri Lapo 7th, Gonzalo 8th, and Martin, the last car on the grid, with still no valid lap time in this session. That's gonna be a tough race for Martin. He'll have to calm himself down, trying to fit within the boundaries of this racetrack if he'll have at least a thought of finishing higher than 9th. And as we wait for the session to finish and to see the drivers prepare themselves for the race, we can take a short break and look at the cars of our drivers. So the car of our current pole sitter is carrying the Ring Freaks livery, and the time has come to an end of looking at the liveries. So let's join the drivers on the racetrack. We have 2 safety cars at the back of the pack. They will make sure that all the drivers are okay after the start. Talianos on pole on the left side of our screens, and on the right side of our screens is Justin Soldukas, the driver whom we currently watched in the MX5 championship in the previous races. He is back on the racetrack in a slightly more powerful car, and he did a great job in the qualifying session. So he just warmed up himself in the previous races. Now he's ready to give it all. Remember, the drivers, the cars are on cold tires. The drivers have to be extra careful approaching turn 1, which is gonna see the cars accelerate to a pretty decent speed. And let's ride on board with Wss Neirola, who started this race 5th. And the drivers reached the speed of 220 kilometers per hour. They don't need to outbrake themselves, but it looks like Italiano's just made a huge mistake into turn 1, opening the doors for Matas Mendelis, because Justinas Saldukas, maybe he was looking at his rival and he managed to outbrake himself also. So he didn't lose a place, but he lost the position for Matas Mendelis. Now Leo Bryan side by side with Justinas Saldukas, and he had a better exit out of turn 3 because he's ahead of Justinas Saldukas into turns 4 and 5. Now down to turn number 6 through turn 7. And running down the hill, which will see an elevation change. Approaching turn 8, we start climbing up the hill, and these two are really high-speed corners, especially when the car's on hot tires. When they are on cold tires, the drivers have to definitely control the pace as best as they can. Neirola outbraking himself and locking the tires. That's not gonna help in the long distance, though thankfully the distance is not that long for these drivers. By the way, Wss Neirola, he needs to seek for a win in this race to be able to compete with Matas Mendelis for the championship battle. Matas Mendelis currently in the best position to win this championship, but he doesn't have the chance to relax because, well, he has the heaviest car. He's currently on cold tires, well, so the heavier car helps him slightly to warm up those tires, but then he'll see the tires wear a little bit faster, so he just tries to create himself a as big as possible gap against his drivers, while his main rival Neirola is defending from McFly, and all this happening down in P4. Leo Bryan 1.2 seconds behind Matas Mendelis, but I'm pretty sure as soon as the tires will pick up the temperature, the gaps should possibly start dropping, and Matas Mendelis will be thinking about some saving of the tires. His teammate Justinas Saldukas dropped down to second after Matas Mendelis made no mistakes into turn 1. Talianos is down in P9, 8.8 seconds behind Matas Mendelis, and Talianos has only 10 kilograms of added weight on his car, so he will be looking at a definitely better result in this race. Now tries to chase down Martin, who didn't manage to put in a valid lap time in the qualifying session, so he's definitely motivated to gain at least a couple of spots. It's not gonna be the easiest task because, as we've seen from the qualifying session results, the pace of the drivers is pretty spot on between the drivers, so no mistakes allowed. This is the very end of the second lap. You can still see drivers locking up the tires, but that means that Leo Bryan is just not only trying to gain advantage against Saldukas, he's also trying to gain on Matas Mendelis, and even with that lockup, he managed to shave off 2/10 of the advantage that Matas Mendelis has created for himself. So if not this battle, he would be gaining on the current race leader, but he has to defend the position from Justinas Saldukas, and contacts are not avoided. Neirola right on the tail of these two drivers, a little bit further off. Martin now down in P9, Talianos up to P8, 8.6 seconds. So actually Talianos gained those 2/10 on the current race leader also. Look at the gap changing between Matas Mendelis and Leo Bryan as Saldukas and Leo Bryan continue to battle it out for P2-0, and Justinas Saldukas just outbraked himself, locked up the tires into the very fast 6th corner, opened up the door for Neirola and dropped down to 4th. So story continues. Justinas Saldukas definitely always has nice pace during these races, but somehow manages to make some small mistakes which cost him places, though he managed to win the race 2 weeks ago and without making any mistakes, but well, maybe he doesn't have the needed time to practice for these races, and practice is necessary to stay on the racetrack, try to avoid all these small mistakes that the drivers tend to do, and the small mistakes become big mistakes in these close races. It's one story when you lock up your wheels while you're alone on the racetrack, and another story while you lock up your brakes while racing your rivals. Well, Justinas tried to gain 1 place, and he lost 1 place in the course of that action. 1.2 seconds between Matas Mendelis and Leo Bryan. Leo Bryan is currently all alone by himself on the racetrack, focused on what's happening in front. He knows his advantage, no extra kilograms on this orange Porsche. So as soon, well, the tires are actually already up to the temperature, and Leo Bryan will try to use that to his own advantage. And Neirola, he qualified 5th, stays on the racetrack. Well, he had an intense start, made a couple of mistakes, managed to hold on to the gained position during the start. Talianos dropped to P8, that opened the door for Neirola to take that 1 spot. Now he took that spot from Soldukas as he made a mistake. So up to P5 without making any real overtakes on the racetrack, and all the drivers know that there's a high chance, especially in the first laps, for such mistakes by their rivals to happen, and they just try to avoid those, and that helped Jussi Neirola to gain a couple of spots. 2.3 seconds behind Matas Mendelis. He was 0.3 slower than O'Brien on the previous try, half of a second slower than Matas Mendelis. So Matas Mendelis, with the heaviest car, still currently the fastest driver on the racetrack. We have a nice little battle between Gonzalo Lapo and Talianos. Talianos is currently 8th, but he's definitely willing to sweep past by these 2 cars in front of him. Doesn't want to make silly mistakes. He already made 1 big mistake into turn 1 after the race start, so he'll be definitely thinking about it as he's racing Lapo and Gonzalo. Looks like Gonzalo made a successful overtake against Lapo. Lapo was running 6th, now he's down to 7th. Martin, by the way, is in the pit lane, so looks like he had an accident, while Neirola was the 2nd fastest car on the racetrack, because McFly currently... No, actually McFly is 6/10 slower, so the fastest car on the racetrack is currently Jussi Neirola, the driver who is trying to chase down Matas Mendelis in the battle for the championship. Jussi Neirola needs to win this race to keep his championship hopes high, even though we have 2 drop rounds. Matas Mendelis was really highly successful in the opening 4 races of this championship, so even though Neirola has the chances open, he needs to perform in this race and make no mistakes whatsoever. So the results of both races count, but you always want to finish in both races as high as possible, especially in front of your main rival. Currently that's not the case for Jussi Neirola, while Talianos just gained that spot because Juri Lapo made a mistake and opened up the doors by himself for Talianos. Well, the hopes of Talianos is currently to try and overtake Gonzalo, but that's only P6. With 5 minutes 40 seconds on the clock, if he will manage to overtake Gonzalo, he will have a huge gap of 5 seconds between himself and McFly to try and snatch that pole position for the 2nd race. So the previous lap time seen no differences in pace between the top 3 drivers, so Neirola is still 2.4 seconds behind Matas Mendelis. He was less than 1/10 faster than the current race leader. The fastest car on the racetrack on the previous lap was Leo Bryan, but the difference was so small that actually you cannot see the results on the racetrack, and well, the gaps stay as they are, and it looks like at the first part of the circuit, Mendelis is doing pretty okay. Up until this moment, the gap was up to 1.5 seconds. Now it's down to 1.2 seconds between Mendelis and O'Brien. So this is the state of the race, where everyone is focused on themselves and just trying to not make silly mistakes during the braking zone, and to not slide off the racetrack. Justinas Saldukas, 51.4, that's not fast enough to gain on the drivers in front, but he's still trying. So after that mistake that he made, he was running third, right on the tail of Lee O'Brien, and it's already the next story for Justinas Saldukas, who is fourth and trying to chase down his rival after those mistakes that he made earlier. Lee O'Brien, 1.1 seconds, and locking up again into turn 15. This is not the first time we see Lee O'Brien locking up the brakes, so that just means that he's trying to brake as late as possible, and I think he's double apexing the 15 corners, so he tries to brake as late as possible and then swap the car around and hit the second apex on the exit, while already on full power of throttle. 151.1 versus 151.3. This is some nice news, and drops of hope for Lee O'Brien that Mendelis starts to struggle on the tires. That's definitely a much harder mission for the driver who has the heaviest car on the grid, but he's doing a heroic job and still running first, while we run. Well, my math might be fooling with me, but I think this is the penultimate lap of the race. It's a shame we don't have Gustas present this evening. He always knows the calculations much faster and better than I do, and he would definitely say if it's the penultimate lap or not, but I think it is, because we just ran around corners 10 and 11, so there are 4 corners to go, and one lap time is slightly more than 1 minute and 51 seconds. So that's also gonna be tight as it was in the MX5 championship. Maybe this time in the Porsches we'll still see one extra lap of racing, and I think that's the case. Yep, it's gonna be really tight, and well, Mendelis will not cross the line with enough time on the clock. So 151.0, and we start the final lap of this race. This one was really close. Still not close enough. Justinas Saldukas putting in the fastest lap time of this race, 150.7, but he's 1.2 seconds off the lead of Neirola, and he just outbraked himself again into turn 1, so leaving Neirola all alone on the racetrack by himself, trying to chase down O'Brien. 1.2 seconds separating the second and the third place as we approach the 1/3 of a lap on the final try of the first race. Looks like Mendelis will be more than safe with winning the first race of the 5th round of the Porsche Cup Summer Championship. It looks like the track suits the driving style of Mendelis just perfectly, and well, he was trying his best in the qualifying session. We could witness that on our screens because he was pushing all the limits that he could find, and sometimes it was just a little bit more than it was needed. Around turn 12 we go into corners 13 and 14, and while it still might look that the drivers might start the next lap, it's not going to be enough. There was 1 minute and 49 seconds on the clock, so unless Mendelis found 2 seconds per lap, that should be the last lap of the first race, and Matas Mendelis crossing the line just as we see the time run out and taking the checker flag. So Matas Mendelis winning yet another race. So Brian finishing second, Neirola third, still Lucas fourth, Talianos fifth, Gonzalo sixth, and Yuri Lapo seventh with McFly eighth. Actually, Talianos managed to somehow gain on his main rival. Someone was running down the pit lane. I'm not sure who that was, but it looks like that was a car that has already finished or maybe finished the race in the pit lane. So quick look at the results as we make a really short break before we get back on the track with the final race of this evening. So stay tuned. So welcome back to the final race of this evening, the second race of the Porsche Cup Summer Championship. This is the 5th round out of 6 rounds in total, taking place every Tuesday. We have 2 racing series, including MX5 Championship and the Porsche Cup Series. And we've just witnessed a really wonderful driving performance by our current championship leader Wss Mendelis. He took the win. He will have to start the race from P5, so the heaviest car on the grid, not the best position on the start, but as usual, somehow Wss Mendelis, maybe with the help of the added weight, manages to warm up those tires slightly better than his rivals. Well, at least he managed to avoid a mistake into turn 1 in the first race, but that's not definitely the case for the second run, so he will try and do his best. His main rival, Wss Neirola, finished third in the first race, and Neirola needs to win this race, at least in the overall points, so that means that Neirola needs to win the second race, and Wss Mendelis has to finish lower as P3. That's the main target and main goal for Wss Neirola in this second race, to keep his championship hopes alive, as we see the cars lined out on the grid, which will be the final race. And Talianos, he's again back on P1 on the grid, and actually Justinas Saldukas is starting second, as we had the same scenario in the first race. Third is Neirola, Mendelis is fifth, and O'Brien will start the race from P4. Neirola, Talianos should have his lessons learned from the first run. He will definitely try to chill out this time and maybe brake a little bit earlier, hopefully not too early, to not cause any accidents. Live stewarding is also currently closely watching the grid and hoping that there's no one who will make mistakes. Off we go from the line, standing start as usual. It looks like Talianos has a nice start. Again, goes defensive. Justinas Saldukas did have a good start. We are on board with Wss Mendelis, approaching turn 1, braking late, trying to gain that spot from Lee O'Brien. There's a contact behind. Lee O'Brien is still running around the outside. Lots of breakup blocks, and Wss Mendelis manages to snatch that fourth position. Neirola stays third, the main rival in the championship. Both two rivals are currently one behind each other, with Neirola being in front. That's Gonzalo, who just lost control of his race car. No ABS, no traction control, cold tires. But you can definitely expect someone to spin off out of the first corners in the first lap, so everyone is currently not only focused to maintain position or gain one, everyone is focused to not lock up the tires too much when they are cold and bring up the temperature as soon as possible. During a qualifying session, the drivers have the ability to weave as hard as they can and as hard as they want to warm up the tires and prepare those for the first flying lap. During the race, they have to be careful, and they are warming up the tires while they race around the circuit. Another interesting feature in the virtual racing of Assetto Corsa title is that if the drivers start the race on cold tires, they don't have a warm-up lap, so that means they start on ice cold rubber on the racetrack, and they need to warm those tires while racing their rivals. Wss Mendelis, well, it doesn't go as planned for our race 1 winner, with Lee O'Brien being right on his tail, and well, he forced Wss Mendelis to take a really tight line around the corner number 15, and well, he doesn't need to even go until the braking zone. McFly is on the tail of Mendelis, who just lost the position to O'Brien, still running really close to the British driver, but McFly, he is kind of closely watching what's happening in front of him and hoping for drivers ahead to come into a sort of a problem to maybe overtake both of them in one shot. That didn't go as planned, well, if it was planned, but he's still right on the tail of Wss Mendelis. So is Matas Mendelis being extra careful out on these first laps? I'm not sure about that, but now he's kind of willing to warm up those tires, while his teammate Justinas Saldukas is battling for the lead. I think he won the second race 2 weeks ago in Road Atlanta. Yep, Justinas Saldukas won the second race while he finished 6th in the first one 2 weeks ago. So trying to repeat the history, though he needs not only luck, but he needs to kind of figure out a plan, because Talianos is in front of him, and well, Talianos was the driver who was the fastest in the qualifying session, so that's not going to be an easy task. But well, if Justinas Saldukas will manage to stay as close as possible and avoid mistakes, he might get a chance, because it's not the easiest task to avoid lockups or actually getting back on the power too early. When you have a driver on your tail, you want to get back on the power earlier as your rival and risk it a little bit more than the driver behind, though that's not definitely the case every time. But you can see Justinas Saldukas, well, he drives without any lockups, while Talianos continues to lock up the tires almost into every corner we approach, at least into the ones that we need a little harder braking. Turns 2 and 3, they don't require hard braking from the drivers. So does not corners 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 and 9. And well, any GT3 car or any car that has more effective aerodynamics on the cars, you can almost go through turns 8, which we are currently driving, and turn 9, well, basically flat out with a really slight lift of the throttle. You cannot do the same in these GT3 Cup cars. This is the older generation, by the way. That's the Porsche 911 GT3 Cup 991.2. So they are actually slightly, well, let's say harder drivable than the new generation Porsche 992, and Justinas Saldukas got back on the power a little bit too early. Went slightly sideways, lost a little bit of time, but continues to put some enormous pressure to our pole sitter, Talianos, who qualified first, dropped down to 9th, and then managed to finish 5th. We didn't see all the overtakes that Talianos made in the first race, but he still managed to finish 5th, take the provisional pole position, and now he's just battling for the win of the second race. Neirola looking to a second, third place finish in this race, which would that be enough for Neirola to take the win in the overall standings? That should be really close. Matas Mendelis finished first, he's currently 5th. Talianos finished 5th, and he's currently 1st, so that's equal on points. And well, I don't have my calculator. Besides me, it's gonna be really difficult to calculate the driver who would collect the most points in this one, but this is a nice shuffle of the grid out of these two races that we've seen so far. And we're actually not even halfway over the second race, while Justinas Saldukas continues to put some nice pressure on his rival. Neirola is 1.8 seconds behind, but that should change shortly. Justinas Saldukas making another mistake that opens up the gap between himself and Talianos. 1 second, 1.1 second separates the first and the second place. 1.3 seconds separates the second and the third place, while Matas Mendelis, well, he was just right on the tail of Leo O'Brien. 0.4 of a second separating the orange and the black and white car, white Porsche. In the battle for P4, I'm pretty sure Matas Mendelis is desperate to finish the second race, well, at least in the top 3 places. But all he can do right now is just deliver and basically avoid mistakes. Looking at raw pace during this race with the added weight, it's not the easiest task for Matas Mendelis to achieve. So he's definitely the slowest out of the top 5 drivers currently. Well, Saldukas was the only car who was slower, but he made a mistake, and actually, well, Lee O'Brien was almost 1/10 slower than Mendelis. But 1/10 is not the difference if you want to make an overtake. So Lee O'Brien, I'm pretty sure he's pretty calm and relaxed currently, just doing his job, maybe trying to chase down Neirola, because the gap between these two cars is also not that big and less than 1 second. Saldukas, after that small mistake that he made, he's still trying to chase down our current race leader. Gap is down to 0.9, again back up to 1 second. And this time Talianos locks up his brakes, and well, maybe this is a driver's style. Some of the drivers tend to brake slightly earlier and try to rotate the car into the corners and get back on the power as soon as possible, and it looks like other drivers are just trying to brake as late as possible and win some time in the braking zone. All in really small differences, with some of them gaining in braking zone and some of them delivering on the straights. Justinas Saldukas 150.7, fastest lap time of the second race, and he was actually the driver who put in the fastest lap time in the first race. It was 150.791. This time he went slightly faster, 150.785. So enjoying the racing action and being the fastest car on the track, half of a second faster on the previous occasion than Talianos was. But that's still not enough for Justinas Saldukas, and as soon as he catches up with the rear wing of Talianos, it looks like the clean air gets a little bit disturbed. That's why Justinas Saldukas makes those mistakes. It's a little bit harder to calculate your braking distance and entry speed. And maybe that's why he's just not avoiding those small mistakes, or taking the whole curb on the exit between corners 8 and 9, overshooting a little bit turn 10, so tightening up turn 11, which is not the worst case scenario. There's still plenty of room on the exit, and now outbraking himself into turn 12, and again, as soon as he gets on the rear wing of Talianos, he kind of, well, at least it seems that he gets lost on the racetrack and is not able to find a decent rhythm and correct braking points, and yeah, that costs him a little bit of time. So out of 0.5 of a second, the gap is up to 0.7. Still should be slightly faster on this lap than Talianos. He was 5/10 faster the last time they crossed the line. He was 0.04 of a second faster when they crossed the line this time. O'Brien with a 50.9, creating a bigger gap between himself and Matas Mendelis. And well, from this point on, Matas Mendelis maybe starting to lose hopes of finishing a little bit higher, but that's what we love about this series. So Matas Mendelis 5th, and it looks like there's nothing he can do, so the gaps are minimal between the drivers and the pace that the drivers can deliver, and it's all about race position. So really the qualifying sessions are really important, and well, the first race for the top 5 finishers, it decides their starting position. So you definitely want to win the first race. But in the case of Matas Mendelis, well, he managed to win it, but now he's struggling to even finish higher of SP5. So the race is still not over. The drivers are pushing as hard as possible. The gaps are small. We have 5 drivers within 3.5 seconds. We have 6 drivers within 6 seconds. So, and we are already approaching the end of the second race. As soon as Italianos will cross the line, we should start the final lap of this race, if it's gonna be the same scenario as it was in first race, and I don't see why it shouldn't be. Though Italianos has kept the lead from the start of this race, Saldukas right on his tail. And again, as soon as he gets a little bit closer to the rear spoiler of Italianos, I hope he goes into a mistake, but this time it looks like he just outbrakes himself, maybe to the disturbed position, and 1 minute 50 till the end of this race as the drivers crossed the line. So it was roughly 1 second faster as Matas Mendelis did 1 lap ago, because it was 1 minute 49 till the end of the race as Matas crossed it in the first race. So it's up to Italianos to put in a really phenomenal fast lap to maybe see 1 more lap in this race, but I'm pretty sure Italianos would definitely want to see the checkered flag the next time they will cross the line, and I think that's what's gonna happen. Justinas Saldukas should have that in consideration. If he wants to win this one, he needs to flawlessly complete all remaining corners. There is a slight chance of overtaking to turn 12, also into turn 15. Maybe provoke your driver to take a really tight line through turn 15 and create yourself a chance for an overtake. Matas Mendelis 4/10 behind O'Brien, but with a really heavy car. O'Brien has 0 BOP added to his car, so that would be a really difficult mission for Matas Mendelis, and these are mainly 2 battles remaining on the circuit, where we have a slight possibility of position change. Italianos through turns 13 and 14 and 1 corner to go. It looks like there will be no position changes around turn 15, and that's gonna be tight, but I think we will see the information that this is the final lap just before the drivers will cross the line, but it's gonna be tight. Is it tight enough? Nope. That's the last lap of this race, and Italianos takes the win. Saldukas finishes 2nd, Neirola 3rd, O'Brien 4th, Matas Mendelis 5th, McFly 6th, and followed up by Lapo, Martin, and Gonzalo. All drivers fitting in 20 seconds between each other. So not a lot of overtakes. Basically no overtakes took place in the second race. We've seen a couple of position swaps between O'Brien and Mendelis, but the other drivers, well, they did an astonishing performance, keeping those cars on the racetrack with small mistakes, mostly made by Justinas Saldukas. It seemed that Justinas Saldukas had the pace, but, well, it was not enough for him to take the win, as he managed to do that 2 weeks ago. So the final results of the second race on your screens: Italianos taking win, Saldukas finishing 2nd, Neirola 3rd, O'Brien 4th, and Mendelis 5th. I think we didn't have a lot of accidents on the racetrack, so at least the results of the second race, they should remain as they are, though we still have live stewarding happening in this race, and if the stewards will decide that there were mistakes made by the drivers, there might be punishments, and the results are still provisional. So in 2 weeks' time we will meet and enter the final round of the Summer Championship. That's going to be the last Summer Tuesday, and we will head over to United States of America to greet the Daytona road course, which is a 5.7 kilometer long circuit on the infield course, and of course taking a big part of the oval course on the famous American racetrack. So stay tuned, and hope you will tune in for the final round in 2 weeks' time. Thanks for sticking with us, and have a nice evening.